Over the past several days, President Trump has made multiple statements on the U.S. goal to seize Iran's nuclear dust, most recently during an interview on CNBC today.
And they can't get the nuclear dust because it was obliterated by the B-2 bombers that went in. They never got the credit they should get. They've tried to get down there. You know, we have cameras from Space Force on it all the time. They've tried to get down. They can't get down. That place was obliterated. They did such a good job.
We wanted to dive into what the president actually means by nuclear dust and how much Iran has. So nuclear dust is the Trump administration's term for the highly enriched uranium believed to remain at the Iranian nuclear facilities hit during the bombing campaign known as Operation Midnight Hammer last June. The International Atomic Energy Agency, or IAEA, believes the material is buried deep underground and below the rubble of the nuclear facilities. Prior to Operation Midnight Hammer, that material included about 970 pounds of highly enriched uranium, or uranium enriched to 60% near weapons grade, according to an IAEA letter to member states. The agency also estimated the country had more than 18,000 pounds of uranium enriched between 2 to 20%, which can be used in scientific research or for energy production. While the president said the 3 sites the U.S. bombed had been obliterated, the location of the highly enriched uranium remains unclear. The IAEA believes the materials weren't turned into, quote, dust, but are buried under the rubble of 2 nuclear sites heavily damaged during last June's strikes. Half of the supply is being stored underground at the Isfahan nuclear facility. Some of the remaining amount is at the Natanz facility south of Tehran. Iran rebuilt some parts of the facilities, but this year's bombing campaign further damaged both complexes, according to the Department of Defense. The president had said control of uranium is a critical part of any peace deal with Iran. For more on the state of peace negotiations, Will Todman joins us now. He's a senior fellow in the Middle East program at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Will, good to see you again. So President Trump says Iran holds no cards, but negotiators, as you and I know, weren't planning on coming to the next round of talks. So does the White House appear to be making more concessions than Tehran?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Lindsay. It's interesting. I think the announcement of an indefinite ceasefire indicates that President Trump doesn't want to resume military operations against Iran. And so I think Iranians will take some comfort in that. But at the same time, they do not want to see a indefinite ceasefire because for them, they want a complete end to this war. They want a deal that will include sanctions relief, that will include a clear understanding about the future of its nuclear program, and that will tackle these many other issues that have continued to vex both the United States, Israel, and actors in the region. So I think for them, this is not a satisfactory outcome. They are being hit by the economic cost of the United States blockade on Iranian ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz. But I think they do have other cards to play. They could resume their attacks on critical infrastructure across the Gulf. And they could also open up new fronts in the war that we have not seen yet, including having the Houthis in Yemen begin attacking another strategic choke point in the Middle East. That's the Bab el-Mandab, the Red Sea, and the effects to that on the global economy would be dire.
How long can Iran hold out given the economic freeze the U.S. is putting on the country to force it to make a deal?
I think that's the key question here, and we don't have very clear answers to that. What I think President Trump's decision to extend this ceasefire indicates is that he thinks the economic warfare is in some ways more potent than the resumption of military warfare and kinetic strikes against more targets in Iran. So I think his administration seems to think that at some point Iran will have to capitulate. It will be forced back to the negotiating table, will be forced to make greater concessions in those talks. But the signs from the Iranians are so far that they have not been forced back. Ultimately, they decided, not to rush to Islamabad to join Vice President J.D. Vance and the others from the U.S. delegation. So far, the Iranian regime is trying to send out signals that they can withstand this economic pressure. But I think it's only a matter of time until the costs do start to build. Their storage facilities for oil reserves will become full, and then some of the oil production facilities will have to be taken offline if they're unable to transport that or put it in storage. And there are long-term economic costs of doing that.
All right, Will Todman, thank you.